Hey there, my name's Colton Hayes. I'm 26, and I've spent pretty much my whole life in this quiet little town tucked away in the forests of Oregon. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your name, and the biggest excitement is when the local diner changes its pie recipe. I work as a freelance graphic designer, mostly from my mom's old garage turned makeshift office. It's not glamorous, logos for small businesses, some web banners, the occasional album cover for a local band, but it pays the bills and gives me the freedom to dream bigger. Those dreams, they've always revolved around the open road. Ever since I was a kid flipping through my grandpa's old National Geographic magazines, I've been obsessed with maps and stories of far-off places. I traced routes with my finger, imagining the wind in my hair and the hum of tires on endless highways. But life kept me rooted here. Mom's getting older, and after Dad passed a few years back, I stuck around to help out. No siblings, no big family network, just me, the garage, and my projects. That's where the van comes in. About 4 years ago, I bought this beat-up 1987 Ford Econoline from a junkyard auction. It was rusty, the engine coughed like an old smoker, but I saw potential. Every evening after wrapping up client work, I'd head out there with my tools. I gutted the interior, built a simple wooden bed frame in the back with storage drawers underneath, drilled holes for a roof vent, installed a basic solar panel setup to power a mini fridge and some LED lights. I even rigged up a portable stove and a fold-out table. The walls? Covered in stickers, national parks, quirky roadside attractions, faded postcards from places I'd only read about. Yosemite's granite cliffs, Yellowstone's geysers, the neon lights of San Francisco, the red rocks of Santa Fe. I'd scribble notes on scraps of paper and pin them up. Camp under the stars here, or hike this trail at dawn. It wasn't just a vehicle, it was my escape pod, my ticket out. I'd tinker for hours listening to podcasts about solo travelers or blasting classic rock playlists. Mom would peek in sometimes, shaking her head with a smile. "When are you actually going to take that thing somewhere, Colt?" she'd ask. And I'd laugh it off, saying soon. But deep down, I was scared. What if I left and everything changed? What if I came back and nothing had? Across the street lived Maris Donovan. She moved in about a year ago, right after her divorce from some hotshot lawyer back in Boston. She's 42, but she carries herself with this quiet grace that makes her seem timeless. I didn't know her well, just neighborly waves and the occasional small talk when I'd mow Mom's lawn and catch her on her porch. She'd sit out there most evenings with a glass of red wine staring at the trees like they held some secret. During the day, she taught piano lessons to kids in town, her living room window often filled with the sound of halting scales and laughter. But at night, there was this sadness about her, like she'd lost more than just a marriage. Rumors floated around. Something about a big house in the city, family drama, no kids of her own. I never pried. We weren't close like that. That Saturday morning, I finally decided it was time. I'd saved up enough from a big freelance gig, packed my bags with essentials, tent, sleeping bag, a cooler of snacks, my laptop for work on the go. The van was loaded, bike rack on the back, gas tank full, playlist queued up. I slammed the rear door shut, double-checked the locks, and hopped in the driver's seat. Engine roared to life, and for a second, I just sat there, heart pounding. This was it, my first real road trip. No itinerary, just south toward California and whatever came next. As I was about to pull out, Maris appeared at the edge of her yard, waving me down. She crossed the street, her hair tied back in a loose ponytail, wearing jeans and a faded band tee. She leaned against the van's window, peering in at my setup. "Hey, Colton. Looks like you're heading out on an adventure?" I nodded, trying to play it cool. "Yeah, finally taking the van for a spin, first big road trip. If I don't go now, I might never." She glanced at the stickers on the dash, her eyes lingering on the map of the West Coast. A faint smile crossed her face, but it was tinged with something bittersweet. "If I were your age, I'd probably do the same. Just pack up and go, no looking back." The words hung there, and before I could think, I blurted out, "Well, if you want to come along, there's room. Age doesn't matter, anyone can hit the road." I meant it as a joke, half expecting her to laugh it off. But she didn't. She met my eyes, something shifting in her expression, like a spark igniting after being dormant for too long. "Wait here, give me 30 minutes. I stared as she turned and walked back to her house. Was she serious? My mind raced. This was crazy. I barely knew her. What if Mom found out? What if it got awkward? But part of me, the part that had built this van for freedom, was thrilled. 30 minutes later on the dot, she reappeared. Small suitcase in one hand, an old leather jacket slung over her shoulder, a worn guitar case in the other, and a tin of homemade cookies tucked under her arm. "Ready?" she asked, as if this were the most normal thing in the world. I hesitated for a split second, then popped the passenger door. "Hop in." She climbed up, stowing her stuff in the back next to mine. The van smelled like fresh-baked goods and adventure. I shifted into drive, and just like that, we were off. Two near strangers rolling down the familiar streets of our tiny town, heading toward the unknown. Little did I know, this wasn't just a road trip. It was the start of something that would change us both forever. We hit the road just as the morning fog was lifting from the trees, the van rumbling down the familiar two-lane highway out of town. I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see Mom's house shrinking away like a bad dream. Maris sat in the passenger seat, her suitcase tucked behind us, guitar case propped against the mini fridge. She didn't say much at first, just fiddled with the radio dial until she landed on some old country station, Johnny Cash's deep voice filling the cab. She leaned back, kicking off her shoes and propping her feet on the dash, sketching quick doodles of road signs in a small notebook she pulled from her bag. I gripped the wheel tighter than necessary, my mind racing. What the hell was I doing? Inviting a woman I barely knew, my neighbor no less, on what was supposed to be my solo adventure? She was old enough to be, well, not my mom, but close. And yet, here we were, barreling toward the interstate with no real plan. "So," I finally said, breaking the silence after about 20 minutes, "where to first? I've got a loose route south. Maybe Crater Lake by tonight?" She looked up from her sketch, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Sounds good. I've never been. You?" "Once, as a kid. Mom took me hiking there. Haven't gone far beyond that, though. Portland a few times for gigs, Eugene for a concert. That's about it." She chuckled, a low, easy sound that cut through the static on the radio. "You've got the whole world mapped out in the back, and you've barely scratched Oregon? Bold move, kidnapping an old lady like me for your first big escape." I felt my face heat up. "Hey, it wasn't kidnapping. You volunteered. And you're not old." "Old enough," she said with a shrug, but there was a teasing glint in her eye. "If anyone asks, tell them I'm your eccentric aunt. Or better yet, say you've run off with a cougar. That'll get the tongues wagging back home." I laughed, the tension easing a bit. "Deal. But seriously, if this gets weird, we can turn around any time." She waved me off. "It won't. Life's too short for regrets. Besides, I've got cookies to share." She popped open the tin, offering me one, chocolate chip still warm from her oven. I took it, the sweetness hitting just right as we merged onto the highway. The miles ticked by in that awkward limbo of strangers thrown together. We stopped at a gas station around noon, filling up and grabbing cheap sandwiches and sodas. Maris wandered the aisles, picking up random snacks, a bag of trail mix, some beef jerky, like she was stalking for a siege. Back in the van, she shared bits about her life in snippets, nothing too deep. "Boston was all skyscrapers and suits," she said between bites. "Hated it after a while. Too much noise, not enough space to breathe." I nodded, focusing on the road. "Sounds intense. What brought you out here?" "Divorce," she said flatly, no emotion leaking through. "Needed a fresh start. Quiet town, quiet life. You?" "Just stuck, I guess. Mom's been my anchor, but it's time to see what's out there." We fell quiet again after that, the radio our buffer. By late afternoon, we'd reached the turnoff for Crater Lake. The air grew cooler as we climbed into the national forest, pines towering on either side. I found a dispersed camping spot off a gravel road, a flat pullout with a view of the lake shimmering in the distance. "Home for the night," I announced, killing the engine. Maris stretched as she hopped out, grabbing her guitar. "Not bad for a first stop." We set up quickly. I unfolded the table, fired up the stove for hot dogs, while she strummed a few chords by the fire pit I'd improvised from rocks. Dinner was simple. Buns toasted over the flames, mustard from a packet. We ate under the fading light, the silence of the woods wrapping around us like a blanket. As night fell, the temperature dropped fast. I insisted she take the bed in the back. I'll crash in the front seat, got my sleeping bag. She rolled her eyes. Don't be ridiculous. It's freezing out there. We're adults. Share the space. I hesitated, but the chill was biting, so I relented. We climbed in, the van's interior lit by a single string of fairy lights I'd strung up. I lay on one side of the bed, her on the other, a good foot between us. The mattress was thin, the air thick with unspoken questions. I stared at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. "Can't sleep?" she whispered after a while. "Yeah, first night jitters, I guess." She shifted, propping herself on an elbow. "This reminds me of when I was 19. Ran off with a boyfriend to see the Grand Canyon. We slept in his beat-up truck, freezing our asses off. Thought we were invincible. What happened? We broke up a month later. But that trip? Best memory I have. This one? It's different. No expectations, just the road." Her voice softened, carrying a weight I hadn't noticed before. "Why this trip for you, really?" I thought about it. Mom's getting frail. If I don't go now, I might never. And honestly, I'm tired of dreaming without doing. She nodded in the dim light. "I get that. After the divorce, I felt like I'd wasted my best years. No kids, no real home left. Just empty evenings with wine and regrets." The vulnerability in her tone caught me off guard. I'd seen her as this composed, independent woman, but here she was, opening up to a near stranger. "Sounds lonely," I said quietly. "It is, but tonight? Not so much." She picked up her guitar from the foot of the bed, strumming softly. Hotel California filled the small space, her voice husky and low. I closed my eyes, the melody lulling me. Before I knew it, sleep pulled me under, the first peaceful night I'd had in ages. Morning came with sunlight filtering through the van's curtains. I woke to the smell of coffee. Maris was already up, perched on the edge of the bed with 2 mugs. "Rise and shine, road warrior." I sat up, rubbing my eyes, and took the cup. That's when she handed me her notebook, open to a page with a quick sketch. Me, asleep, mouth slightly open, looking ridiculous, but oddly peaceful. "You snore like a chainsaw," she teased, her laugh genuine, lighting up her face in a way I hadn't seen before. I groaned but couldn't help grinning. "Thanks for the portrait. Real flattering." "Anytime. Now what's for breakfast? Your turn to cook?" We stepped outside, the crisp air invigorating. I toasted bread over the stove, slathering it with peanut butter from my stash. As we ate, watching mist rise off the lake, the awkwardness from yesterday felt gone. We talked about nothing and everything, favorite songs, worst jobs we'd had. I told her about Mom's famous apple pie. She shared stories of piano recitals in her youth. For the first time, it didn't feel like we were just neighbors thrown together. It felt like the start of something real, even if I couldn't name it yet. As the days blurred into one another, our little van became more than just a vehicle. It turned into a rolling home, a cocoon where the outside world felt distant and our conversations grew deeper. We left Crater Lake behind, winding south through Oregon's dense forests, the road twisting like a river through the pines. Maris had taken to navigating, her notebook open on her lap, sketching quick maps or doodling landmarks as we passed them. "Let's skip the interstate," she'd say, pointing to a side road. "More scenic this way." I'd grumble about gas mileage, but follow anyway, secretly glad for the detours. We crossed into Northern California by midday, the landscape shifting from evergreens to rolling hills dotted with vineyards. We stopped at a roadside fruit stand, buying fresh strawberries and cheese for a picnic. Maris spread a blanket under an oak tree and we ate in the shade, juice staining our fingers. "Tell me something," she said, popping a berry into her mouth. "What's the one place on your map you have to see?" "Grand Canyon," I replied without hesitation. "Always wanted to stand on the edge and feel small, I guess." She nodded thoughtfully. "I get that. Boston made me feel small in a bad way, crowds, expectations. Out here, it's freeing." We pushed on, hitting Nevada by evening. The air turned drier, the sun baking the asphalt. We camped near Lake Tahoe that night, the water glassy under the stars. Maris pulled out her guitar again, strumming softly as we sat by a small fire. "You ever play?" she asked. Nah, no talent for it. She handed it over anyway. Everyone's got a little. Here, try. Her fingers guided mine on the strings, patient and warm. We laughed when I botched a chord, the sound echoing off the water. It was moments like these that chipped away at the walls between us, simple, unforced. But the real test came in Arizona. We'd been driving through the desert for hours, the temperature climbing to a brutal 110 degrees. Sweat soaked my shirt, the AC in the van